Hey, all you experts out there, this is the Monetize Your Expertise podcast, where we show you how to use your skills to pay the bills. Have you ever wanted to create a business that positions you as the industry leader and go-to expert? Join me every week to hear from amazing leaders and entrepreneurs who have successfully refined their skills in order to become experts and create extremely profitable knowledge businesses. To find all of the links and tools mentioned in this episode, just go to myepodcast.com. I'm your host, Grant Weherley, the online course guy, helping you every week to monetize your expertise. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Monetize Your Expertise podcast. Today, I want to talk about using contractors in your business, and specifically about doing this before you hire an employee. Because the topic of hiring and building a team, it's a great topic. It's really, really valuable, something that I've been trying to focus more on recently. But I think there's a chunk of the conversation which is overlooked, and that is the different types of options to grow your team and also what's the correct order to do that in. There's a lot of talk about best practices of how to hire badass people to have on your team or how to partner with people, but there's a common area, one of the areas you can look into, which I think is overlooked, which is contractors. So to take a step back real quick, there's probably about 4 main ways of growing your team. That's going to be, number one, the VA, which is also talked about a lot, the virtual assistant. This is somebody who you can maybe hire out of the Philippines or something for $5 an hour to do random tasks for you. The pros and cons of this are basically that it's cheap, they can do really monotonous stuff really cost effectively, but you're constantly having to manage them and they don't have a dedicated role necessarily. They can, but typically they don't. Number 2 is going to be the dedicated team member or employee. This is somebody you hire out to maybe 20 hours a week, 48 hours a week, have a very specific role that they can pretty much autonomously execute without you directly handing them random tasks. The next level would be the contractor, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And then finally, you can also create a partnership. So somebody who comes in and co-founds something with you. I think I got the bases covered there, but also feel free to correct me and leave a comment if there's another way to grow your team. But when I was thinking about it, I think it's pretty much these 4 core ways. So let's dive into what a contractor is and what I'm talking about, what I mean when I'm saying that word, and also how to specifically use this in your business. So the way I'm defining a contractor here, typically it's another business. It can be an individual, but typically another business which performs a very concrete, specific service in a particular area of your business. So this would be the agency that comes in and does all your SEO for $500 a month, something like that. And there's a lot of different options, a lot of different services they provide, but that's the general concept. Now, there's also a little bit of overlap here with certain kinds of SaaS companies that are more service as a service instead of software as a service, but then the definitions get kind of confusing. But basically, you can think of a contractor as somebody with a very concrete way of helping another business. Now, the reason I'm talking about this today is that there's a series of very specific benefits for this model. So let me go through those now with you. So number 1, you don't have to learn enough about the topic to hire and manage an employee for it. For example, going back to that example of SEO, well, if you have no idea what you're doing with SEO, if you know nothing about SEO, it's going to be very difficult for you to hire somebody who's legitimate to oversee their work and have any idea what the quality is like. And actually, SEO is particularly tricky with that because sometimes things can look really good when they're actually really bad for you, and it's very confusing. So that's a huge obstacle if you're trying to hire, and you can get around that by hiring a contractor, this other company that just does that one specific thing because it's more reliable, it's more legitimate. They already know what they're doing, and you don't really have to partake in it at all. Another major benefit is actually the cost effectiveness of it. This is not true in all circumstances, but in many cases, a company that performs a very specific chunk of your marketing or a chunk of your content creation, something like that, they usually do that for many, many businesses. So they have a very refined approach to doing it. So it can be very, very cost effective, much more so than actually doing it in-house in some cases, especially, again, if you don't really know what you're doing. It's also a much faster way of testing the value and the ROI of a particular strategy. For example, if you have a contractor come in to help you with your content marketing, Well, if you are trying to test out content marketing as a general marketing channel for your business, period, well, if you're going to build the team around that and hire the right content marketing employees and test that out, you're investing a lot of time and energy into setting up the systems, and you don't even know if it's going to work. So another benefit about most contractors is it's usually something like a very specific timeline or service or month to month. And so you can say, okay, come in for 3 months, I'm going to pay you X dollars, you're going to accomplish Z outcome, and then I know if I get Y return, this is profitable. It's very concrete and very easy to test new initiatives in this respect. And this can even lead into actually hiring a person on your team to fulfill this service. Because if you're hiring a contractor, they're having their own systems, they're executing in a particular way. All you have to do is observe what they're doing, document that process, see what they're doing right, see why they're doing a good job, and then it's very easy to hire, and you've already observed the systems of execution. You can hand that off to the person that you bring to do this in-house. And one final benefit, and this is more on a personal note, I personally produce a lot of content for courses and content marketing and things like that. So personally, I really need to be freed up to be able to actively execute on those roles. So if I'm too involved in other elements of my business, I find it very difficult to do that. And I found hiring contractors for various segments of my business has really freed me up and given me the peace of mind. So I don't even have to manage that employee who's doing it. I just have this other business executing on this subsection of my own business. And it gives me a lot of peace of mind and a lot of freedom of mind to accomplish other things. So let's talk about a couple ways I'm currently doing this and looking into doing this just as an example for you, because there's a lot of different types of contractors in this respect. So you may not have a clear idea yet exactly the types of ways you can do this, but two of the ways I'm currently using this very extensively in my business. Number one is for design work, and two is for actually producing this podcast. So let me go through those two really quickly with you. Number one, I use designpickle.com. There's actually a couple different ones, but basically it's one of those monthly, we do tons of design work for you, which is very useful for me for creating graphics or making a PDF that I make really pretty, or just different course materials. There's a lot of different things I can use it for. And I can do that myself. I even have an employee who can do these things, but having a dedicated contractor, dedicated agency executing on this, I found is so much more simple than even managing my own employee to do it. So that's been really effective in my own business. The second one, again, is actually the production of this podcast. The way I've got it set up now is that I record this, or I record with an interview. I hand it off, everything else is taken care of. And I have the peace of mind that even though I've kind of, through the process of hiring this contractor, learned how to basically do that service, I don't even care to do it because I'd be much slower at it. It's just not cost effective for me to spend that time that way. So I know other people who edit their own podcasts, and that sounds kind of like a pain in the ass to me. So I am happily using a contractor for that. There's actually two more services that I'm looking at that I'm excited to evaluate to see if I can incorporate them into my business as well. And the idea here is to give you a couple different examples of what these can look like. So two other ones that I'm looking at are called WP Curve and also Optimized Prime. And that's Optimized Prime. It's kind of, I guess it's a play on word with the Optimus Prime or something. I don't know. Anyways, WP Curve is, actually, I know one of the founders, Dan Norris. Basically, it's similar to Design Pickle in that it's an unlimited amount of a service, but it's specifically small tweaks to WordPress sites and security and things like that. So I'm looking at that to help manage my WordPress sites, because just recently I've had a Filipino employee that I was employing part-time kind of as needed to do this, and that was getting to be a bit of a headache. So having a dedicated team and company to take care of that seems a lot more cost effective. And actually, I did the math. It should actually be cheaper, ironically, than what I was doing before. And then the second one I'm looking at is called Optimized Prime. This one's not as big or popular as the other ones that I've mentioned so far, but it's a really cool little service I'm looking at that basically does what's called content upgrades for blog posts, which is where you're reading a blog post and they're like, hey, if you want the top 10 ways to do what you just read in this blog post, download this PDF here. So it's additional information that people enter in their email address that follows along the topic of a blog post to get more email opt-ins. And so I can do that myself. I've been doing it myself, but having a simple service to just do it for me sounds really, really nice, because there's one more thing that's off of my plate so I can concentrate on more important things. Now let's go through 5 simple steps to actually incorporate these kinds of contractors into your own business. So step number one, all you have to do is sit down and make a spreadsheet of every initiative in your business that takes up your time and your mental energy. And then number two is going to be going into that spreadsheet and also adding all of the initiatives that you want to start doing, but you haven't found the time to. And then number three is going to be to categorize everything. So you get these columns of things that you're doing, things you want to do. Then just go through and categorize. Is it related to PPC? Is it related to content marketing, SEO, networking, whatever? And then step number four is just going to be sitting down and doing some very simple Googling to find contractors for each of these things. And then once you've got the contractors, you can evaluate the profitability of that. But just sit down. The categories can help you search for this, but very simple Googling of, PPC. Actually, some terms you can use are productized service, SaaS. You can use the word contractor, although I find people don't typically use that word very much within their own business. But you can just Google around with these different terms and see what you can find in terms of fulfillment of each of these initiatives. And you can do that for each of the things you're currently doing or want to start doing. And then all you gotta do is run the numbers. What are the prices that they're charging? And what do you think the return on that initiative would be? So that's step number 5, is just to evaluate the profitability. You've recorded the different things you're doing, the different things you want to do by category. You found a list of contractors for each of these, and then they've of course got their pricing. So then you just have to sit down and say, okay, I'm not currently spending 10 hours of my time doing this. There's a contractor that can do this for the equivalent of $100 per week. Is 10 hours of my time or $100 a week more important to me? Very simple evaluation, and also just gives you the ability to sit down and look at how profitable is this actual thing in and of itself. When you spend your own time doing things, it's very easy to not even think about the return on that investment. You can just be tinkering away with, making little YouTube videos for business, and at the end of the day, it may have no impact on your business whatsoever. But when you're forced to sit down and pay somebody to essentially execute the same thing, then all of a sudden it's very easy to sit down and think, okay, I'm paying $500 a month. How many email addresses would I have to get from this initiative to make that profitable? How many additional sales would that generate? You just sit down and you evaluate the profitability based on what that service is supposed to accomplish for you. Sometimes it's going to be indirect. Sometimes it's going to be email subscribers, might be revenue generated sales, lists of prospects, increased traffic, things like that. For example, SEO is not going to get you direct customers necessarily. It might just increase your traffic. But basically, you can do the math and say, okay, if I pay $10,000 a month on SEO, and that generates 10,000 additional people per month, and that converts at X percentage conversion rate that I currently have, then that will generate Y revenue, right? So you can just go through, do the math very simply, and then you can get the result of, yes, this is worth doing, or no, this is not worth doing, period. And then for the ones that are profitable, just try them out. Spend 2 to 3 months hiring this contractor, seeing if it works for you. And then again, as I mentioned before, it's very easy to go from there to bringing that in-house once you've successfully evaluated that initiative. So anyways, that's contractors and how you can use them in your business, and a way to use that as a segue into potentially hiring for a particular service or element initiative in your business later. So thanks for sticking with me. I know it was a bit technical at times, but feel free to go to the show notes at myepodcast.com. I'm going to make a list of, basically a summary of what I just said in terms of the 5 steps and some of these services that I just mentioned, so you don't have to remember it or write it down quickly. So just go to myepodcast.com and you can get more of the information that I just related to you in writing, where you can see it more clearly. Thanks again for listening. Hey entrepreneurs and experts, I just wanted to thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope you learned at least one new big idea that helps you evolve your skills and gets you closer to monetizing your expertise and creating that successful knowledge business. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on iTunes and Stitcher, and check out myepodcast.com for all episodes as well as the tips and tricks mentioned in this episode. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.